The Old School Rewind Podcast. The podcast about breakdance music.
So why is it got to be so damn tough?
Hip-hop and old school. The roots of electronic music. The Roland 808 and freestyle. This is the Old School Rewind with Randy Bubba Black on the Podcaster Online Network, Facebook.com. Search Old School Rewind and subscribe now at iTunes with all links at oldschoolrewind.com.
Over 3,000 downloads so far. Thank you.
You say 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, y'all, let's break this.
Hello there. Happy Friday from Aaron. Bubba Black here on the Old School Rewind podcast. How you be? Hope everything's well. Crazy world, huh? Keeps spinning round and round, and so do those pieces of vinyl back in the day, straight from the Platin, the Technics 1200 turntable, if you were lucky enough to have the money to score one of those, or a Lindrum, or a 808. This is where I'm telling the story of rhythm radio from 1982 to around 1989-ish or so. And we've had some great shows and stories so far. Now, I realize only real fans are going to spend an hour with an artist, so every few weeks for subscribers at iTunes, we'll do a best of rewind, and we'll rewind. The Old School Rewind. Make sure you share, review, listen along with subscribing, and again, search us out at iTunes. Sort of a best of. The Old School Rewind is on, baby.
I'm rocking, girl, I'm shocking every chick around. There's no one that can hang, cause my hands are so quick. Doing tricks on 2 turntables, baby, I'm so sick. And my beat goes boom, 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 boom.
Yes, baby. The women here are oh so cute. Beautiful day today, Egypt.
Man, it sure is. L.A. is a place to be.
Appreciate you being here.
Good to be here, man.
So, Egypt, my history puts me in the middle of separate car speakers, graduating in 86, sophomore in high school, 84. You were the king of the bump system and the separates here in the West Coast. But you probably know that already because I'm guessing you engineered your music to do it. So thank you. I mean, besides Lonzo and the rest of the West Coast stuff and whatever New York influence we get to, you're the king. To me, you're the king, man. You're the king of hip-hop. You're right in the vein of a California boy.
The speakers went boom, boy.
So you're brought up
South Central Los Angeles, on the east side.
Great time growing up. Egypt, how were you raised? Both parents in the house, supportive?
Oh, yeah, definitely good parents. I mean, I was raised, never heard of anything racist or anything like that, so I had no idea what racism was. And I actually was bused to an all-white school in the San Fernando Valley, and that's the first time I heard a little bit about racism, and I was like, what is that? What are you talking about? We're all the same. And then I heard the differences. I'm like, well, there really is no differences, and I just moved along with it. And it was pretty fun, just having a different kind of people to grow up with, have lunch with, talk about each other's backgrounds, and it was pretty fun.
Was the family gifted with money? Did they purchase your stuff? Were they behind you financially?
Oh, no. We were regular people. I think Mom was a telephone operator and Pop was a chef at a camp for the Bad Boys.
Egypt, what'd you do as a kid? Movies, cartoons? Where were the places to be for a young buck in South Central? Pre-technology, of course.
No, there was no such thing as videos and nothing like that. So, yeah, we would go to the movies, see Planet of the Apes and Bruce Lee movies and stuff like that. Play with our G.I. Joes when we were young with the Kung Fu grip, Hot Wheels and stuff like that. We actually had Army Men. We created our, you have to have an imagination back in the day. You threw your Army Men on the floor and, yeah, so we have to have an imagination. You have Army Men, you create your own war scene. You play with your own Hot Wheels, you make your own car chase scenes. It was fun because you have to be creative, and I think that's where I got my creativity from, by creating games when I was growing up.
Did you have one of them Evel Knievel motorcycles?
Never got that. We weren't that rich. I never got the Evel Knievel, so I always wanted one but didn't get one.
That was the toy. Egypt, you saw a movie in junior high that changed your life forever. Tell me why.
Well, the Sheik was Rudolph Valentino. And, man, as soon as I saw the movie, I heard that when he passed away at a young age, that he had over 100,000 women come to his funeral. And so I was like, wow, he is the man, because, he had 100,000 women come to his funeral. Goodness gracious, how many he had, when he was alive. So I watched The Sheik, and I wanted to see how classy he was, or what he did to fall in love with these women, or make these women fall in love with him. And so I watched The Sheik, and he was just so charismatic, and the way the camera captured his eyes, the way he looked at the women, and I just said, wow, that is so cool. And that's kind of where I got the Egyptian Lover name from, was King Tut and Rudolph Valentino. So watching The Sheik really changed my life.
Why didn't you just call yourself King Rudolph? Or Rudolph, how did you get to, you were the Sheik, baby? It wasn't as stylish, or what?
No, there was already another Rudolph around during Christmas time, so I didn't want to be anything near Rudolph. Oh. And I didn't want the Rudolph name. I wanted the Sheik's, the actor. So it wasn't actually Rudolph Valentino. It was actually the role he played, which was the Sheik. So the Sheik was like the lover, the Egyptian lover. That's where I got the Egyptian Lover from. King Tut and Rudolph Valentino.
So when you were just Greg going to school, did you get laid, Egyptian Lover?
Did anybody get laid in school? Heck nah.
What happened? Was there a babysitter? Where did someone turn you out somewhere? So at some point you got set off on that one-track mind.
I was just walking down the street when this little freak started following me. She was strange, but that was alright, cause a strange girl was coming home with me tonight. She had cute lips and pretty eyes, with a shake and a walk and dreamful thighs. Her hair was oh so long, and the sexy way she talked just turned me on. I was kinda shocked when she approached me, and her body was the best that you ever could see. I didn't get nervous, I didn't turn back, cause I could do it all, baby, just like that. You better settle down, girl, you had too much wine with your see-through lace. Oh, girl, you're fine. One thing you don't know that you better know at times, that the Egyptian Lover has a one-track mind.
I think I was always a one-track mind. I had a one-track mind ever since, first Playboy I ever saw or whatever. Just girls in school. I always liked the girls.
Were there girls pre-Egyptian, as I'm calling it? I've got a new word for it. It's pre-Egyptian.
I always had crushes on girls all my life. So, it was that. Never had a real steady girlfriend, but I flirted with all the girls. So, yeah, I went on a lot of dates and had a lot of girlfriends. I used to dance, so girls like guys who dance. And
sure.
Got the Jerry curl, and girls went crazy.
Some GAME.
Oh, yeah. I had the Mac down, call them on the phone, get the phone voice. Hello, how you doing? All that good stuff.
We'll talk about that voice. Sports. Did you play any kind of sports?
I played football when I was really young, but I had asthma, and we didn't have any asthma sprays back then. You actually have to go to the hospital and, get on the machine. So
right.
I couldn't play football very long because I had asthma. And it's kind of funny because when I made my second record, Egypt, I played it for my mother, and she says, "Why are you breathing? You have asthma." And I said, "That's exactly why I'm breathing. So I'm telling you that I'm over it. I can breathe now." So it's kind of like a play on the asthma thing as well.
Very interesting. Then I was going to ask about that too. So that's very interesting. So you didn't want to be Dusty Baker. You wanted to be Prince and Kraftwerk mixed together, huh? How did you get exposed to your first Prince and Kraftwerk?
Prince, he made a song called Soft and Wet. And as soon as the record started, he used the breathing like, yeah.
Sure.
And I always thought that was so sexy, and it just like... One of them old songs like "Put Your Foot on a Rock."
Put your foot on the rock and pat your foot.
I was like, that's so nasty, it's so sexy.
Put your foot on the rock and pat your foot. Don't stop. Put your foot on the rock.
And so when Prince used it, in Soft and Wet, then on the breakdown, he said something like, "Leave you without breath." And I was like, oh man, use the breathing again in there. Then I heard his second album, he did a song called "Sexy Dancer," and was going, and that just took it away. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the perfect nasty song to dance to. You can do the nasty when you're dancing, and I just took it from there. Like, yeah, I'm putting breathing in everything I ever do. If I ever do any more mixtapes for high school and stuff like that, so I was doing raps on my mixtapes and putting breathing all in the mixtape. So I was breathing.
Any of those living on the internet now on YouTube?
Heck no, I would never put none of that on YouTube. It was a totally different kind of rap. It was a straight up high school, street rap kind of thing. So I'm glad that's not out there. So
oh, it's something you're not too proud of.
Well, it was just straight gangster stuff, street stuff, and it was something that I didn't, go further in my career. I just went to my own style.
I see. Okay. And so how did that influence? How did you get the gangster influence? Was it
It came just from living in the streets. That's what everybody lived. That's what you know. So you write and you rap about what you know.
You a fighter?
Of course.
You like to fight, or you defend yourself?
Defend myself.
Your mixtapes, we all had them. I made my mixtapes here. My favorite was, the Sucker MC intros and the Jam Master Jay breaks and all those, doing those pause mixes. And your mixtapes, you said, and you started selling them. Is that correct?
Yeah, this was like 1978 and 79.
Sure.
So I made a few in 78, but when Rapper's Delight came out in 79, everybody wanted Rapper's Delight on tape. So I actually made Rapper's Delight, and it took 15 minutes of the tape up. So it was real cool to just put that on there and then pause button some other mixes after that. And then I started getting requests for more rap, and I had to tell my friends there is no more rap. I said, why don't you make one? So I went home and I used my headphones as a microphone and made a rap. So this is 1979. So 1979, 1980, and then 1981 when I graduated, I was making mixtapes for my high school, and it was pretty profiting.
Did you do any college?
Did 1 year college at CSUN, and that was it.
Me too. Got on the radio station about 6 months, and I was out. See ya. I look on all those labels, and it cracks me up to look back at them that people had their contact information. Do you have any of the P.O. boxes or phone numbers that you had on the labels of your records back in the day?
I still do. I have my very first P.O. box still active right now, and I send out fan mail, and people send me birthday cards and fan mail to my P.O. box. 19301 LA, California, 90019, and I still, return the messages through the P.O. box.
That's incredible. People don't communicate anymore.
That's right.
Still analog all the way around, are you?
I'm in the studio right now with analog equipment.
What are you running in there?
I got 2 808s. I got a vocoder. I got a Jupiter 8. I got a SH101, Juno 60, just all analog gear. So the vocoder, it's one of the slickest vocoders heard ever. Is this the same one you've used always? Yeah, same one. What kind of vocoder? It's a SVC 350 by Roland. Do they still make those? Nah, man. How about a plug-in that even mimics it? You can't get close to it. This is the only one. I tried to talk them into making a boutique version of it, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I asked them about it, and they said they might. Same type of thing that Miami found? Is that the same kind of vocoder that a lot of that stuff that, Oh, yeah. Yeah. The freestyles of the world. And yep, that's it. Pretty Tony had one. Pretty Tony, sure. Actually, Pretty Tony saw me at a club in Miami, and he came up to me and said, hey, man, can you tell me the equipment you're using? And I told him the Jupiter 8 and what kind of vocoder, and I think he went out and bought it the next day.
We have a problem on channel 16. I believe it's an uncalibrated calculation and syncopation circuits. Track 24 reporting an uncontrollable low frequency beat. We can't seem to locate it. Track 14 trying to maintain proper stabilization on this channel without creating a situation of overmodulation. You have a problem that you cannot really fix. Let me hear your problem and I'll fix it in my mix.
Well, and I didn't know that Luke Skywalker's was one of your jump-offs, too. I didn't know that. Yeah, he was a promoter, and he actually booked me for a show, and I went out there and rented an 808 and showed him how to program the 808, and right after that, he booked 2 Live Crew, and he actually joined their group and became an artist instead of a promoter.
Word. 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 Word.
We get the red carpet treatment because we're well respected. Always accepted and never rejected. Difference is made when we take the stage. The crowd gets excited and goes in a rage because we're too live is what we are. You got tentacles out everywhere. You're a lot like Lonzo. You and Lonzo got the tentacles everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They hadn't found their 808 yet, and I think did you have anything prior to the 808, or it was?
No, that was the first thing I got. I mean, I didn't even know a drum machine existed.
Right.
And Africa Islam, told me that Planet Rock was made with a drum machine. I'm like, a drum machine? What is that? He was like, man, they have them at the Guitar Center. So we went down to the Guitar Center the following weekend, and I saw the 808 and programmed the Planet Rock beat, and then Ultra didn't change it and said, wow, this sounds like a record. I need to make a record with this. So I had to get it, and that's when I had the 808. So I was like one of the first ones, especially one of the DJs who had an 808. I brought it to a sports arena dance with 10,000 people and actually played it. I was kind of nervous when I played it, but I played it in front of 10,000 people right on the breakdown of Planet Rock, and all 10,000 people kept dancing. And a few people was asking, what song is that? What song is that? And I was like, They think it's a record already, so it must sound good. Then I changed the beat and broke it down and kept going. And they just loved it. And even a promoter who was running the Uncle Jam's Army, Roger Clayton, walked up to me and said, man, what song is that you're playing? And I pointed to the drum machine and said, what's that? I said, it's a drum machine. And I started playing the cowbells and the hi-hats. He says, man, that sounds good. And I got on the mic and started going, yes, 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 yes. And everybody started repeating after me, and it was just incredible. It was wonderful to see 10,000 people dance to a drum machine, which was unheard of back in '83.
You're absolutely right. And on Yes, 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 the layers, I mean, even the chorusing effects in the background of Yes, 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 in addition to that whole, the high pitch part of it, not just a low pitch of a vocoder, then you just had some chorusy stuff too, correct?
Yeah, we was just having fun in the studio, seeing what we can do.
And what does it mean to play half speed Planet Rock?
I mean, I heard it, and then I slowed it down in my head, and said, "Oh, I'm gonna do a song like this," and I slowed it down in my head and played it with the keyboard, and it sounded great.
And what song did that end up being for you?
Egypt.
See, that's an incredible thing. And you know who else I had an interview with that was just real heady? I want to call you a heady guy. I've watched a lot of your interviews, and you're very astute. You're very well spoken. Not to say that anybody else is any less spoken that I've interviewed, but you and Cosmo cared about the sound and that technical side. And it really sounds in the music, not really, you really can hear on the other side. Self-taught, or did you? Are you a pick up a manual guy, or are you a punch it out because I'm savant? I got something in my head that I can play anything.
Yeah, the later. I just pick it up and start playing with it, and whatever come out. I mean, I never picked up the directions to the 808 to this very day. But I learned pretty much everything about it, even more than what they thought was in it. I learned about this one trigger out called the accent, and we accidentally plugged it in one day in the mixing board and heard this electronic pulse. And actually EQ'd it and made it an instrument, and programmed it on the 808 and used it on Egypt. And that's the little electronic click sound you hear in Egypt. And even the people at Roland did not know that sound came from that drum machine. So it was something that I didn't learn from reading any manual. Of course, it wasn't on YouTube back then. It was just an accident that happened, and it was just a great accident.
It's crazy because everything's on YouTube now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, everything. There probably shouldn't be any more colleges because you can learn anything you want to learn on YouTube.
I have a kid that's getting up on 30, and he had a friend that is very successful and taught himself everything he knows in his field by learning on YouTube. My kid learned how to play guitar by learning tabs. He didn't go to guitar lessons. He picked up tabs, and he could play the guitar. It's just a whole different thing, man.
It's a new way of learning.
I had to put the pennies on the stylus and make sure them shits didn't fall off.
Exactly.
Trying to heavy up. What was the triple threat scratch?
That was something I had to learn. Make a long story short. A promoter wanted me to DJ at one of his clubs, and I didn't know how to DJ. I just knew how to pause button mixtape.
Sure.
So I went home and I borrowed somebody else's turntable because I only had one turntable, and I had to learn how to do pause button mixtapes on two turntables. So one of my friends and my little brother said, why don't you play the right turntable and then have the left turntable follow it. So like if the song said dance, then the right turntable go dance, have the second turntable on the left side follow, so dance. And then my brother said, while the second one is playing, rewind the first one with your hand and then bring the mixer back over and make it go dance for the third time. So we tried it, dance. And then my other friend named Dwayne said, yeah, we're going to call it the triple threat. So he kept saying, do the triple threat. So every part of the record, I would do the triple threat. And that's the mix we came up with. So it's really a pause button mixtape mix that I had to create to recreate.
Wait a minute.
The pause button tapes.
I was trying to recreate some pause button stuff, and it was so difficult in a digital. Not at all, right? Just threw it right together and thought, man, the
tapes just had their own sound. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, that certain fatness. Who was the first person to pay you to play that first gig, and how much was it, and how heavy was that damned equipment?
Well, I didn't bring no equipment. I brought some records to my first gig, and that was that one guy. He said, "I'll give you $500 to do what's on this tape at my show." So I learned how to DJ. Took me a while to learn how to DJ. Got all the triple threats down, get the beats down. Bought some records. He gave me $500. I showed up. He said, "Oh, I don't want you to DJ. I want you to do the rap that's on this tape." I'm like, "That's all?" So I got on stage there, one song, $500, and my uncle was like, "Wow, that's paid right there." Then, of course, the DJing came in helpful times later on when I joined Uncle Jam's Army, and like, well, I know how to DJ as well, so let's do this.
Rest in peace to
Roger Clayton.
yeah.
Yes.
Here comes another piece from a former show, an old school rewind. So, Manuel Joseph Parrish. Does anybody call you that anymore?
That's like nails on a blackboard. I hate you for saying that.
Don't hate me. I heard a guy calling you Manny throughout an interview. What do you like to be called?
That's fine. Manny's fine to friends, yeah.
Well, is Man, are you comfortable?
So the story behind Man is I used to hang out with, these people that knew Andy Warhol. And my friend Chris Makos, who was a photographer, took my picture for Interview magazine, which was Andy Warhol's magazine back in the 70s, late 70s. And they did this kind of like man about, no pun intended, guy about town or people about town. And they were looking through these proof sheets, and Andy Warhol, I was standing there, and Andy Warhol said, we can't use Manny, it's too common. He says, "Why don't you use Man?" And I said, "Man?" He goes, "Yeah, well, I knew Man Ray, the artistic photographer, and Chris is his apprentice, so this is perfect for you to be called Man. So change it from Manny to Man, and we'll put you in the magazine." And I'm like, first of all, can I use foul language?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, I don't give a fuck, he said. I said, I don't give a fuck as long as you put me in the magazine. If you could ask Egyptian Lover how he was getting laid as a kid, I'm sure we could talk about anything.
So you enjoyed that interview, hopefully.
Yeah,
it was a good story. What a nice guy he was. And you get laid, Egyptian Lover? And he was pretty honest. Did any of us get laid back then? I'm not so sure I was.
Yeah, I left home at 14.
Too. I'm a little tiny farm out here in Central California. I'm about an hour east of San Francisco.
That's how my name came about, and I did a couple of other things, and they said, "Well, what's your name?" And I said, Man Parrish, and they went, "Okay, that's cool." And then it just stuck for the last 40 years.
I'm a 68 model. You're a 58 model. What street did you
59. Well, I grew up as a kid in one house. I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Bensonhurst, Brooklyn is where Welcome Back Carter, that high school, was our local high school where Saturday Night Fever was filmed. And later on, I became friends with the guy that owned the Saturday Night Fever dance club and helped him renovate it and stuff like that. But I grew up on 73rd Street and Bay Parkway in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which was all Italian rednecks. Bensonhurst to black people was what Harlem was to white people. White kids didn't go to Harlem back then, and black guys didn't come to Bensonhurst, So it was my cuisine, Italian friends that were, "Hey, how you doing?" All mafia.
Over here. You over there? I'm over here.
Yeah, what's the matter for you? I grew up in that neighborhood, and funny, I'm doing hip-hop and, rap music, which was completely different. I grew up on rock and roll, taking acid at 14 years old. We used to go to the Academy of Music in Manhattan, and it was the only place we could buy drugs. Go down in the basement for $10 and get a hit of Window Pane, and we don't even care who was playing. I think we saw Janis Joplin towards the end and Jimi Hendrix and all that kind of stuff. But we would just go down because we can get acid and trip our brains out. And then I got into glam rock like David Bowie, and that led me into being more of the artistic, creative type, and that led into dance music a bit later.
You mentioned David Bowie. You're known as the David Bowie of club music around, I would say.
I'm writing a book. One of the stories in my book is I got to go to Electric Lady Studios, and I met, let's see, my friend Cherry Vanilla used to work with David Bowie. She was his publicist, and she was doing a cabaret club show at a place called Reno Sweeney's in New York. Right around the corner was Electric Lady. And she said, somebody famous is coming in tonight. So when you're a big guy, you're 6'4", when he comes, I want you to, block off the dressing room because people are going to get excited. I'm like, who's this? It can't be David Bowie, but who could this be? Sure enough, her show ends and there's a big commotion. But she goes, go get him, go get him. And I walked out and I was a big David Bowie fan. I went, oh my God, it's David Bowie. Luther Vandross and a girl named Ava Cherry who sang backups. They went into the recording. They went into the dressing room, and after a couple of joints and a few lines of coke later, they said, "Hey, let's everybody go over to the recording studio around the corner." And I was like, "Oh, cool!" So we packed up her stuff, and he went over separately. And when we got there, we walked into the control room, and he said, "This is Luther Vandross. He's a well-known background singer in New York, and he did all the arrangements on this new song that I just did called Young Americans. Would you like to hear it? It's not even mixed." So I got to hear Young Americans before it was released off the 24 track.
Wow.
Pulled in just behind the bridge, he lays her down. He frowns, gee, my life's a funny thing. Am I still too young? He kissed the diamond there. She took his ring, took his babies. It took him minutes, took her nowhere. Heaven knows he'd have taken anything. All night. She wants a young American.
Being friends with Cherry, Bowie had a townhouse on 20th Street between 7th and 8th. And Cherry said, "Hey, we've got some tickets to go to the circus. Bowie's out of town, but Angie, his wife, and his kid, and I'm going. Would you like to go?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, let's hang out with the Bowies." Sure.
Right.
So I got to see his house. We were hanging out downstairs, and Angie Bowie says to me, she says, "Cherry tells me you know all about recording and electronics." At that time, I don't have the studio I have now. I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I said, yeah, I know all about it. She says, "David's machine is broken. Can you go upstairs and take a look at it?" And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I want to go snooping around David's house. So it was a 3-story brownstone. Everybody was downstairs. And I went upstairs. I went into their bedroom. I'm looking in the underwear drawer. I'm going into the bathroom, what kind of toothbrush and toothpaste, And I got up to the top floor. It was a floor through in this brownstone. And David Bowie, I expected it to be all silver mylar, like a spaceship, and it wasn't. It was kind of like a folk singer's house with macrame rugs and acoustic guitars and a rocking chair. And I was like, this is how David Bowie lives? Come on, you're supposed to be living in a spaceship up here. So I got to see his house, and then later on, coincidentally, I was managed by his manager. I was a main man artist managed by Tony DeFries. So when I left my Import 12 record label, I was on Elektra, and that's a whole other story. But so this Bowie thing was, I've just got kind of in it over many, many years, through association and stuff like that. So
hey, you left home at age 14. Why was that?
Yeah, my mom was schizophrenic, but back in those days, you weren't really diagnosed as that. Sure. You were just a little weird and a little strange, and that's how mom's a little off, but things got a little rough. I'm writing a book. I don't want to give all the way, but
Okay.
I wasn't sexually abused, but I was mentally and physically abused. I mean, at one point, my mother tried to tie me to a radiator and turn up the steam to punish me. So it was fucking crazy.
I can't wait to read it in the book.
Oh, I've got lots of good dirty stories and good. Freddie Mercury tried to pick me up in a bar, and I'm like, "Who's this fucking bucktooth queen?" All my shit. I managed the Village People for 10 years. I testified against the Mafia. I performed at Studio 54, came down from the ceiling. Madonna was my opening act. At 14 years old, I was in a gay bathhouse. I saw Bette Midler, an unknown singer called Bette Midler, perform, and her piano player, who was also unknown, called Barry Manilow. So I've lived a pretty crazy life, you know what I mean? But it's all going in the book.
Hey, a Brooklyn attic. Was that where you started having a studio first? Is that home or is that somewhere else?
No, I always had a home studio. That attic in Brooklyn was actually later. So if you saw pictures of that attic, it might be online or in the Red Bull interview. I'm also in the 808 movie. That happened later because I wound up inheriting that house and renovating it. But it was literally a bedroom studio. I lived in the city in different lofts and stuff like that, and my loft was always like Grand Central for everybody in New York City, but after my record deal, I wound up on Elektra Records. As I mentioned, Bowie's manager managed me, but that came to a crashing halt. He wanted me to do rock and roll. Here's David Bowie's manager, and he's saying, electronic music's never going to be anything. It's just a fad. You're wasting your time. You got to get a rock band together, slide across the stage, lick the guitar, go on tour. And I'm like, well, I really want to do electronic music. And he's like, it's never going to get anywhere. Listen to me. I'm David Bowie's manager. So I wound up getting a band together and doing some rock and roll music, and it was the most horrible thing in the world, right?
Wow.
So the record label that had signed me for hip hop, bebop, boogie down Bronx, all this electronic stuff I did, they were like, what the fuck is this? So they're like, see you later. So I lost my loft. I lost my income, through the record label. I lost my manager. My mom died the day I went to Studio 54 and came down from the ceiling. We put her in the cemetery, and then I had to get in a car and go for rehearsal at Studio 54. It's insane. Crazy, 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 crazy shit. So I wound up moving back to Brooklyn, and with that came all of my old synthesizers. In those days, everything was physical. There were no plugins and computers back in those days. You had a synthesizer. It was a heavy keyboard you dragged around. So I set it up in my mom was gone. I set it up in my old bedroom in Brooklyn, and Boy George came out there. The Village People came out there. The Man to Man records I did. A lot of local people, Klaus Nomi, all these people came to me in Brooklyn because I had all the gear, and it, for $50 you could do a record.
How did you get all the gear? That was one of my main questions.
Well,
you seem like...
I told my mother at one point.
Is that another chapter for the book?
No. I mean, it's a long chapter, but I'll tell you being the comedian I am, I wanted an ARP 2600 synthesizer, and they were about $2,700. And I said to my mom, I want a synthesizer, and she's like, you're not getting what? No way. And I said, Mom, if you don't give me a synthesizer, I'm going to become a male prostitute, and I'm going to sell drugs, and I'm going to make the money. And she said, hold on a second. Let me speak to your father. So my first couple of synthesizers were funded by them. Then I did porn soundtracks. I did demos, save up money for $1,000 for a porn soundtrack. I could buy an 808 and maybe a 303, and my drums and my bass were covered. A Pro One synthesizer at $2,000 or $1,500. Another porn soundtrack and a few more demos, and I could do that. So one thing led to another, and it built up. And yes, I did become a male prostitute for about 6 months.
I was just going to say, how long did that hold you off?
It was the most hysterical thing in the world. I'm telling you. You think, I got the life. I'm a male hoe, and I'm getting paid for it. But it wasn't even the sex, and it wasn't old people or anything. It got sad really quick because most people were like lonely, and they're like, do we actually have to have sex, or can we just talk? And I went, what? I thought, I'm going to be getting laid and having fun. Well, I'd rather just talk. I'm lonely. And at that point, the whole thing turned around for me, and it wasn't like cool or fun or fantasy anymore. It was like, I'm taking money from people that are just sad, and I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore.
And what age is that?
I was, well, it isn't like it is today. In 1970, if you were 16 or 17 years old, you were probably mentally 25. But I was 6'4", so they didn't card you at clubs. They didn't ask you for cards for cigarettes. So I must have been about 18, 19 years old. But I was 6'4", you know what I mean? I looked like I was 20-something, and nobody asked. Or they're like, I know you're not legally old enough, but if you don't tell anybody, I won't tell anybody. If they ask, just say you're 22. And nobody asked. You know what I mean? You're just this cute little dumb kid with a boner.
Did you want to be a producer or an artist? Do you consider yourself a vocal artist?
Originally, I went to High School Performing Arts Academy of Dramatic Arts. So the High School Performing Arts is where they did Fame, the movie.
Okay, I love it.
I got thrown out the same day as Freddie Prinze. That's in my book, too. We both were called down to the office for being class clowns and disruptive. I was terrible in school. I had ADD, so I couldn't sit still, and I was cracking jokes and making fart sounds. And
you and me both.
Oh, yeah. Pulled my dick out once in front of somebody just to make some girls scream. I mean, I was out of control, so they threw me out.
We might be related.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the question. I wanted to be an actor, right? And music fell into my lap by smoking weed, because I was always into synthesizer music, but there wasn't enough of it out there then. There was some music concrete and obscure stuff like Tonto's Expanding Headband, which are they used to call it head music back then. Now it'd be sort of like ambient, And I thought, I can't smoke weed now. I get paranoid if I do. But back then, I want head music, trippy music to listen to. So sure. I bought a Radio Shack synthesizer kit, and I remember I had my blacklight posters, and that thing where it had a light bulb, and the light bulb would raise and it would turn, the projections on the wall. So I had that thing, you know what I mean, and burn some incense, smoke some weed, and I would with the synthesizer. So that's how I kind of got it into music.
mind. And if you're from the Bronx and you hear the sound, come on everybody, boogie down, boogie down. Man Parrish and Cool Raoul, cooler than the water in a swimming pool. I like the R to the A, the U, and the L, pushing more power than a Duracell. And like the M to the A, the N, and the Y, the hip hop master that you can't deny. So check out the beat and listen to the sound. And if you're from the Bronx, just boogie down. People all around, walking around in the streets. They got the funky box with the John Ski beats. You hear the sound, become a believer. You go to the Bronx, hang out at the Viva. You take the D to 205. You go see me, cause I got the gift. And I'm the cool MC with the vicious sounds. I'm not from the Bronx, but I still boogie down. F to the R-double-E-Z-E. F to the O, the R-C-E. Yes, the freeze force. And we never lost at any cost. Cause I'm the boss. I'm the cash bank money keeping, never broke, never cheap. And if you ask me for a dime, give it to you anytime. Keep cash money, but I'm no jerk. I can use it, don't abuse it, I can put it to work. Just to buy my clothes or designer name. And if you wanna bite, you never look the same. Bill Blass, Calvin Klein, or some of mine. You never catch me on the welfare line. You got the perfect beat, I hear you say. But you better listen close, cause I'm here to stay. Oh, that I rock so good, I rock so strong, I rock so well, cause I last so long. I rock the mic with the greatest of ease for all the fine and the sweet and the young ladies. And when I say my rhymes, I know you want to bite. It's not right or polite, so we have to fight. But I don't wanna fight, I'd rather rhyme instead, because my rhymes sound fresher than Wonder Bread. And all our brothers in the Bronx, we got to rhyme. Catch all the ladies and blow their minds. And all our brothers and the sisters in the US of A. This hip-hop music is here to stay.
We've had some fun here on the podcast. Here comes another segment, an old school rewind.
Rock me tonight. Rock me tonight. You move your body along with mine.
The queen of freestyle, Connie. Is that what they would term you?
Oh no, I don't do that. No, there's a lot of them out there. Too many. I'm just Connie. One of the divas. One of the many divas.
One of the freestyle divas for sure, huh?
That's correct.
A lifelong diva, huh?
Yes, I guess I am. I'm one of the lucky ones, yeah.
Well, it's very nice to talk to you. We're right about the same age. I was there and I was rocking your stuff in action as a teenager, driving around Stockton, California in a lower mini truck, headed out to San Jose to check out the car shows. And Connie, your song reigns king in the East Bay and out this way as one of those first freestyle tracks that had a different sound. It's had to have been pretty good for you, especially if you had the right deal when you got hooked. I go, all right, wasn't it great to do? No, the guy screwed me, and I didn't get any money in this, that, and the other. And I think that's more to the often than it is to the not so often that I get that answer.
It is, and it's very sad, yeah, but very true, very true.
2 o'clock, the party's still going, and all my friends, they're ready to go. Turn around, though I smile at you. That's when you shine out, forget just what you want to do. I've been late, obviously, what I want to do to me. Why can't you see it's so easy? You and me just rocking with the beat. For that funky beat. Just you and me. Rocking in the streets. Rocking with that funky beat.
Was Funky Little Beat the first single?
When I recorded, first I auditioned for that particular song, believe it or not, out of, so many girls that auditioned to record that song. And, Henry Stone, he's a legend in the music business.
KC and the Sunshine Band. James Brown.
Absolutely. Executive producer, yeah, definitely an amazing man. And him and Amos Larkins, who was the producer of the song, decided to go with this little 21-year-old girl. And, I just gave my age away. Whatever.
They'll have to go do the math. It's between you and me.
Don't do the math. Don't. I recorded that song, Funky Little Beat. That was the first song that I ever recorded in a studio, and that was the most amazing feeling because I've always, since I was a little girl, wanted to do that. And I just kept recording, and they stopped me. Okay, do it again. And I looked around. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm really doing this. This is, so cool. Never expecting to have this song go, nationwide. And then after that, international.
Let's start in the bedroom, and the brush is a microphone. How does Connie, where are you from?
That's right. That was Connie. I'm from Hialeah, Florida. It's a small town in Miami. I was raised by my mom and my dad, and they're Latinos. My dad was Cuban, and my mom is Ecuadorian. Normal childhood with my brother. Oh, he's older than I. He's 4 years older. Actually, it was my brother who inspired me, because my brother would turn on the radio every morning while he was getting dressed, and I was getting dressed to go to school. And back then, it was like the Beatles on the radio and some of these other groups. I'm like, oh, man, I just started getting into it. Then it was watching all these variety shows from back in the day. And during Christmas, it was Bob Hope.
Sure.
And
Bing Crosby.
Bing Crosby. Oh, my gosh. And I said, oh, my God, I'd love to do that. I want to do that. And I really got excited about the whole music business aspect of it.
Sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas. Christmas.
Children laughing, people passing, meeting smile after smile, and on every street corner you hear silver bells,
Silver bells, silver bells.
It's Christmas time in the city.
Hear them ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day.
A lot of days you would find me with a little, hairbrush as my microphone, and I would just sing and sing and pretend that I was with Bob Hope singing songs, Christmas songs and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it started off.
How old are you at this time singing in a brush and realizing the Beatles?
I must have been about 6
Right.
or 7 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
I can trace back wanting to be a DJ right back to about 7 years old with a handheld recorder running around. And 30 years later, I ended up making a career out of it. And you too. So congratulations. We're all still here. How was school for Connie?
I never really cared for school.
How come?
I don't know. I just loved being home with my family, and every time that I would have to go to school, I just didn't care to get up. I'm not a morning person, so I hated that part of it. I was a really good student. I just didn't like the fact of getting up early to have to get a bus to then go to school, in the middle of in the dark. I didn't care for that. I have always been a night person. So yeah, you don't want to wake me up at 6 in the morning because I'm not the nicest person.
Oh, you and my wife.
That's funny. I was really good in school, A's and B's, and my brother, who loved going to school, Mr. Social Butterfly, was there just to socialize, and he'd be terrible. He would get C's and D's, and so go figure, right?
Where did you hear your first slow dance and think that a boy should be asking you to come dance? Where were you?
Oh, wow. I'm going to tell you, in first grade, there was a little boy, and I'll never forget his name, Kevin. His name was Kevin, and I thought he was the cutest little boy. And that was my first crush. Is that too young?
No, I think everybody's got one of those.
I don't know, but that was my first crush. I've always loved boys. I don't know. When I really wanted them to ask me to dance, I guess I was, junior high. I guess that's for every girl. I don't know.
Where'd you find, and how did you progress from into high school musically, somewhere you didn't want to go? Did you take music classes or just sing at home? Or
during my junior high school years, I knew that what I wanted to do was perform. So I said to myself, I need to do something about this. So I went ahead and I registered for drama, and I registered for choir.
She's a thespian.
Yes, I did both. The drama, it helped tremendously. Get up there, and okay, now do this and do that, and that really, really helped. I tell that to anyone, because a lot of people say, oh my God, I love performing, I love singing, but I'm scared to be in front of a crowd. Well,
take a drama class and that stops, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
When you have to get up there and pretend you're a chicken or something, yeah, that kind of takes care of it.
Drama class has that effect on people to fix that.
Well, that was difficult because, you're talking about a girl that had no connections in the music business at all, okay?
How do you get interested to where you start technically recording music?
My brother, again, had a lot to do with it because he was older and he started working at a radio station.
What kind of radio station? Shout out.
It was I-95 in Miami, which was a pretty big radio station at the time. He became friends with a few people, and one of them was John Aguillo, who's from Erotic. He has his own band, Erotic Exotic, and he had some freestyle hits as well. But before he actually had these hits, he was working at the warehouse where Henry Stone had his studio. And at the time that he was friends with my brother, he says, hey, do you know anyone? We're trying to get an artist for the song. And he's like, well, my sister sings. She's always liked singing. And he's like, oh, get her. You got to talk to her. And my brother, at the time I was going to college. And he kept telling me, hey, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you know, but there's a lot of people, a lot of stories you hear about all these people that are going to make you a star. So I didn't really pay too much attention. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get to it.
Harvey Weinstein, we're finding out, right?
Oh, yes. I'm glad I didn't run into him.
You know, it's sort of a surprise, especially out in Florida. You know, that's sort of the signature thing out there. They're notorious out there for that type of stuff. But maybe that was a little bit later, past the New Kids days and the Backstreet days and whatnot.
No, it's been around for many years, and a lot of worse things that I heard about, but I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, so that's how Funky Little Beat was the first song that I actually professionally recorded.
What was the studio? A big, large warehouse, you say?
The warehouse is where the distribution center.
Oh, okay.
The party's still going and all my friends, they're ready to go. Turn around, though I smile at you. That's when you shine out, forget just what you want to do. I've been late, you know obviously what I want to do to me. Why can't you see it's so easy?
But in there was the studio, the professional studio with the board, you know, and all that good stuff. And that's where Henry Stone had his office, okay?
How's the conversation go with Henry Stone?
At first I didn't meet Henry Stone. I met Amos. And then Henry Stone just came in for a second just to look at me. And I just said, oh, hi, how you doing? Oh, good. You know, he's not very serious. He's the executive producer, you know, he doesn't talk much. Oh, okay.
I want complete imitations of their voices, too. So give me how the conversation goes down, okay? Just Stevie D. Lundy from the Force MDs kept doing Tommy Boy's voice. It was hilarious.
Well, you know, Henry Stone's very, very deep voice, and you know, I do, you know, almost like a gangster voice. Yeah, I can't do that. But anyway, it was like a gangster. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, you like this little song here? Oh, okay. All right, I'll see you later. And then he just walked away.
What do they do? Okay. They play you a demo?
Yes, and I'm like, oh, whose voice is that? And Amos goes, oh, that's my voice. Like, wow. Wow. It was a little girl's voice. It sounded like, I don't know how he got it to that point, but I guess they have their engineering ways of doing that.
Where's a copy of that? We need to hear that.
Oh, I don't know. I guess Amos destroyed it. He put it in a fire pit or something. I don't know.
Is Amos still alive? I know Henry Stone's passed.
Absolutely. Amos is still around. He's still doing a lot of Miami-based music.
Sure.
And actually, we recorded an album last year. It did well on iTunes and all that good stuff. So.
All right. So Connie, we're there. We're in the office after Amos leaves, and Henry Stone says.
Actually, I just left.
Oh, okay.
And then I got a call back in about 2 weeks later, and Amos is like, "Oh, Connie, hey, you know, do you mind recording a little bit? We want to hear what you sound like, blah, 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 whatever." I'm like, okay. So I went over and he gave me a demo, and I took it home, practiced, and then went back, and I recorded Funky Little Beat.
How many takes?
Oh, a few. It can get tiring. Do it again. And after they were satisfied, they're like, okay. And then they called me back. We want to now do it one more time. And we did it, and then he's like, okay, we're going to release it. And then I'm like, okay. And, you know, they're talking about all this. We're going to release it, and then, locally, and then we'll do it nationally. And I'm listening to all this, and I'm going, yeah, right. Even though it was Henry Stone, okay? But in my mind, I'm like, I can't see that happening. But, okay, I'll just nod and go, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, great, wonderful. You know, because I had heard so many stories about things they do with their vocals and all this that I really didn't believe it, you know. So I'm like, yeah, okay. And I totally forgot about it. Just kept going, you know, to my little college classes until they called me back. They wanted me to sign a contract.
What do you mean they do stuff with your voices? Were you not happy with the way you sang that song?
No, that's not it. What I mean is they can get your vocals and put another girl to perform with your vocals.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, all this other stuff I've heard.
You don't know what the hell's going on. You come.
So you don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they'll use your voice. They don't need you anymore. They got your vocals.
I want to get to know you better. Seems like we both belong together. You rock my body like no one did. Rocking in the streets to this funky beat. This funky beat. Just you and me. Rocking in the streets.
What year?
That was 1985 that I recorded Funky Little Beat.
Make sure you share, review, listen along with subscribing, and again, search us out at iTunes. Over 3,000 downloads so far. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Old School Rewind with Randy Bubba Black. Share and subscribe now at oldschoolrewind.com.